that fantastic, delicious note. We have one more topic to discuss, guys, in today's debate, and it's in the title of accountability. We already talked about that a little bit just now, but I want to introduce the topic with a video from Chris Hall in the UK.
Hi, I'm Chris Hall, founder of the Burnt Chef Project. Over the last 18 months, we have had an epidemic of massive proportions. We've experienced things like sensory deprivation, breathlessness, loss of energy, the ability to go out and do things that we want, and sadly, a great loss of life. But I'm not talking about COVID-19. I'm talking about a subject that has been affecting our industry for a lot longer. Employee well-being due to high levels of stress and poor mental health. Often we find that the stigma of mental health is so strong that it can take up to 10 years for someone to say out loud that they aren't well. Now, when you consider that our studies have shown that 4 out of 5 hospitality professionals have experienced at least one mental health issue during their career, those numbers are pretty scary. In an industry which celebrates a turbulent life of excess and a badge of honor in not letting the side down, is it any wonder that it's been a struggle to open conversations and fight the stigma of mental health within hospitality? Most recently, we have seen mass shortages worldwide in the hospitality community as visitor numbers continue to peak, yet staffing numbers drop. Our studies have shown that work-life balance and feeling valued rate higher than all other reasons why people do not want to return to the third largest sector in the world. That's why I started the Burnt Chef Project back in May 2019. The aim was simply to raise some awareness for general mental health issues. Mental health is something we all have, and I wanted to raise awareness through a series of black and white photography. The hospitality professionals I approached were only too eager to jump in front of the camera, to have their best side captured, only to back away quickly when the subject of mental health was mentioned. An interesting response to something that was so deeply affecting our industry. But, like picking at a loose thread, I continued my work. Time went on and the number of portraits grew. Every image with its own unique story conveying a powerful message saying, "You're not alone, more goes on behind the scenes, and today we make a stand." Fast forward 2 years, and since then the Burnt Chef Project has grown significantly to provide a wealth of industry-leading resources, such as free training through the Burnt Chef Academy. We cover things like nutrition, stress reduction, mental health awareness, plus much more. We also now provide 24-hour support services, design tools dedicated to challenging the stigma of mental health, and provide leaders with the skill set that they need to effectively tackle this subject matter head on. Our latest figures show that our tools have reached 112 countries worldwide, but our work here is still far from done. By turning to other professions, we can be inspired to change the way in which our great industry runs. When you look at firefighters, for example, we know they're provided with the right tools and equipment needed to effectively douse flames and save lives, navigating their biggest area of risk safely. With 1 in 5 of the people we spoke to recently looking to leave in the next 12 months, and even more sitting on the fence, it's time that we provided our own teams with the tools they need so that they too can fight the flames associated with high levels of stress, burnout, and mental illness to ensure that this is the profession of choice. Now, we know it's been a tough year, and whilst COVID has amplified the resource crisis we're currently facing, we cannot blame COVID for the situation we find ourselves in. The well-being of our teams has been neglected for far too long, and the profound impact to our industry has been bubbling under the surface for a much, much longer period of time. Margins are tighter than they've ever been, especially since COVID. We have less hands on deck now than ever before, and we're pushing our resources to the max. We expect more and more from our teams in order to ensure our customers are happy and our businesses thrive. I believe that in order for us to turn this ship around, we need to provide our leaders with the skills to manage with confidence, empathy, and to ensure that the well-being of both themselves and their teams is made a priority. To become agents of change and work together, we need to breed a new form of hospitality professional and in turn, a healthier industry. This is why we at the Burnt Chef Project believe in and dedicate our time not just to helping those who have mental health issues and need someone to talk to, but we also focus on building the capability of our greatest asset in the trade, the people who make up the beating heart of our industry. There's no getting away from the fact that implementing change is like moving a cruise liner and not a dinghy. But we are drawing a line in the sand and saying it's time that we challenge the status quo of that's the way things have always been done, so that we can begin to operate in sustainable ways, improve our retention, recruitment, and ultimately provide individuals with a profession in which they can thrive rather than simply survive. We want to encourage future generations of hospitality professionals to join us in what I believe is the best profession in the world. So I'd like to ask the 50 Best Talks panel today, as some of the leading lights in our industry, how do you go about addressing stress and ensuring the well-being of your team, your own staff, and what changes will you make to improve this profession and address the issues we face together? Thank you.
Wow, that's a topic that's been on a lot of people's minds lately, and rightly so. JP, why don't you give an answer to Chris's question? How do you go about ensuring well-being of your staff these days?
I believe, including myself, a lot of the chef on the stage and for the ceremony for the World 50 as well, they might be faced with the same problem, while there's a young cook. But as I'm myself, it's we are kind of moving forward and overcome that kind of stress and everything. But it doesn't necessarily to having, same hazing kind of culture, to passing the same environment to the next generation young chef, people does, oh, I just made this on overcome on all the stress hour. So you should do that. It's not very fair or some very not kind of makes sense for us. So I think we are kind of need to be voicing up a little bit more about it. But at the same time, the people need to be, especially the young cook need to be know about it. Being a good chef is actually physically need to be working long hour. It's kind of art is in between the practice, also creativity. So we cannot making really good restaurant just without actual practicing about the knife skill or some butchering skill and how to handling all the ingredient. You can have some wise view about the service, everything. So it's definitely kind of taking time, and it's need to be very focused about what they are doing it. So this is very important to know about it. But also same time, I believe the most chef is not very good talker, to the all the employee. They just give some order and just following my direction. They're not really doing conversation with all their employee well, because they're
style chefs.
Yeah, very much oh, this is my way, so you should follow it in this way. So that kind of environments make them more kind of confusing about it. Am I losing? Am I in the good industry to working together? So I think that we need to be talking more with our young cook and or the next generation to more with open conversation, how they feel, what they want, how they want to make this restaurant to being in a better space to work with it. Because running the restaurant in New York is not easy because of the high land, all the salary, everything. So we cannot giving changing in one day, or everyone just working full day and working 40 hours per week. And we definitely cannot making any profit, So the restaurant is also, industry need to be making the profit to survive and then to growing up with it. So we need to be having more open conversation with them to what's they want to be grow up as the young line cook to be a future of the restaurant generation. So I think we need to be, that's more important, I guess.
So much change is happening even in that perspective. Selassie, what's your opinion in terms of what changes could be made in the restaurant world? How do you go about it in your kitchen?
My kitchen is probably quite different from your kitchens. I grew up mostly in the US, moved back to Ghana, and the context, the cultural context in which I work in, I decided first of all to have an all-female team. So all of my cooks are women. I've had to do a lot of education. So one of my best, I also make chocolates, Ghana cocoa. So one of my best chocolatiers actually started off as a cleaner, and she expressed interest. So we actually moved through the space and the process. Because of the challenges that exist in society, there's not a lot of safety nets for people. We constantly are having a conversation. I've met the family members of most of my staff. I've gone to funerals. I've gone to universities to make sure that those who wanted to move on to go back to school, they felt supported, and I gave them advice on what courses they should be taking. We've had staff not being well, and I've had to actually physically go to see the doctor because there was not enough understanding. So I've built it as a team. As a family, actually. As a family.
Less of an army-like situation, more family situation.
Yeah.
I think that's important because you spend so much time together.
Sure.
All the time together. And it's also looking at menus and understanding, in my space, what techniques should we be using? What equipment should we be using? What level of, how do we simplify things in a way that allows us to work and have less hours at the moments that we need to have less hours? So kind of playing with some of that as well. If I wanted to do extremely highly technical dishes, that would put a lot more pressure on the team. So making choices like that at certain moments and certain seasons also allows us to kind of figure out how do we make sure that we are not overworked.
Interesting questions. So Daniel, in your experience, what are helpful ways to cope with high levels of stress and burnout? Do you want to talk to us about that?
I think it's clear that it's creating a great culture that is a key element, the culture of learning, but it's also a culture where people don't get worked into the ground like it once was. Consistent days off. We have a running club once a week for people to show up to go on a run. We have a yoga club where people can go do yoga. We have this service where people get once a month a free consultation with a therapist, and then they can have more if they need more. So there's all these things, but I think the elephant in the room, and it's to address this, but it's to address others. Restaurants are too cheap. Restaurants are not charging enough. And I think that's I see a lot of journalists here, and restaurants get always hammered on price. But you're not just paying the food that's on the plate, There are so many costs involved to run a restaurant. And if we want to have a better conditions for our employees, we need to raise our prices, because that will allow us to have a better work-life balance for our team, for them to ensure that they have a vacation, for them to ensure that they get a leave when they have a baby, all these things, because that hasn't been part of our culture for years.
So many things are too cheap today. I remember when I was growing up, we only went out to dinner maybe once or twice a year. I think maybe go back to that point where you only go for dinner once or twice a year, but because it is more expensive, but then it will also support a whole system, not only we're talking about sustainability, producers, but also your staff, their well-being, and creating better working environments and better kitchens and a better situation for everyone else.
Yeah.
So do you feel that it is your job, owning a restaurant, to make sure staff is happy? Because, of course, I think happy staff will do a better job.
No, 100%, and it's much more enjoyable to work with a team that's going to want to be there and it's going to stay, and is not always on their last, Yeah.
Is there still a stigma, or do you believe that it is easier for staff to come and talk to you about it if they feel unwell, do you think?
I think it's definitely not easy, because when they start working, they have tons of the list of the prep they need to be done in certain amount of time. So they want to make the time to talk with me, but at the same time, they have a lot of the work to do. And also seems like I'm like doing some sending email or some developing the menu. You know, looks like I'm also doing some of my own projects. So it's like not easy to communicate each other well. But I think that I might be going to be talk with our employee as well. So it might be like set up like more section to, you know, because sometimes I just like pop up the kitchen and then asking some line cook and sitting down to get how are you. If I'm asking them, it's like, I'm okay, chef. Like, you know, like they're not really hard to say their like feeling to me, you know, like, you know, one step. So it need to be like taking more time to being, you know, more like in the family kind of situations.
Yeah, exactly. Like Selassie said, I think your situation where you're running your restaurant more like a family than an army.
Yeah.
I think it's important because maybe your staff will be feeling much more at ease to talk to you about how they are feeling and having a tough time.
I mean, I also have challenges because in Ghana, there's a lot of hierarchy within the space. So I actually have created a system where I have lots of people that people feel free to talk to different people. So it's just being aware of they may not come to me with a certain issue. They may go to somebody else. But for someone else to say, okay, this is an issue that I'm going to raise, like it's not going to be openly said, but they'll say, hey, you may not realize this, but so-and-so is having these issues. So there was one team member who was 120% and all of a sudden went to, you know, 40%, and I was like, what's going on? She wouldn't tell me, but I found out there were family issues that had, you know, transpired. And so it's being able to have enough people that are in the space that people can speak to. So it may not be me, it might be another staff member, it might be someone I have in HR who does check-ins. I have an accountant who also just checks in with people and randomly will pass me messages. I have my mother that calls and checks on people, you know, because, no, I mean, like, there really needs to be lots of people that are in this space that are able to give you feedback because, like I said, not everyone's gonna wanna speak to me, and I think that's okay. I just need to know who else people would feel comfortable to discuss it with, and at what point they feel that they should either share that information with me anonymously without saying this staff member, but this is an issue that we need to address. And I sometimes leave that space for them to deal with the issue because they may not want me engaged and involved, but I'm giving them the authority to say, at your level, please find the best solution for this issue for this staff member.
Yeah, because in the end of the day, you are the chef. Like you said, it's hard for your work, your employees to tell you that they're not feeling well because they don't want to disappoint you. But it looks like you're looking at ways, and Daniel as well, to give your employees the chance, like a safe place where they can go with their issues so that you can take care of each other.
And it doesn't change overnight, so it's definitely something that you have to create a space that people start to trust you or trust that the system is going to support them.
Exactly. Well, all very interesting conversations, but I am afraid we have been running out of time. I think we all agree that the aftershocks of the last 18 months need not all be negative. The industry is evolving in novel ways, and there are signs of positive revival. Excuse me. As humans, we have the skill to adapt and to reinvent ourselves and our systems. The most important thing is that we are having these conversations. Change will happen. It has to happen, like you say. Thank you, Daniel, Selassie, and GP, for this fantastic conversation, and thank you to our guests and our audience at home for following. On behalf of 50 Best, we look forward to seeing you again at the next event in the next few days. Have a brilliant afternoon. Fijne namiddag nog. Au revoir en veel Spaß. Have fun.